Amen. Thank you, Cynthia. My name's Ron Vroman. I'm the old white man talking head for the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. I have other jobs in the assembly also. I'm here with Robert Bobby Graves. Bobby's our marshal, and I asked him to join me. We're making a recruiting video for deputy marshals for the provisional government on Oregon. Article 1, Section 1 of Oregon's Constitution. Cynthia, you're on. Do you want to read it? I got it here for you if you want to read it on this camera.
Okay, Article 1, Section 1 of the Oregon Statewide of the Oregon Constitution. We declare that all men, when they form a social compact, are equal in right, that all power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. And they have at all times a right to alter, reform, or abolish the government in such manner as they may think proper.
Thank you. So, we have one marshal and one deputy, and we're running our marshal all over everywhere, hours and hours of driving, and we need to recruit qualified, competent deputy marshals that can meet Robert's expectations. Tell us about it, would you, Robert?
Sure. You have to know exactly what is going on in Oregon so that you'll know what you're up against when you face it. We don't have law and order in Oregon. We have a criminal enterprise. It's been around a long time and it's well entrenched. Law and order doesn't exist in the regular de facto world simply because they pay them under the table, and many of the deputy marshals, our sheriffs, don't even know this is going on. If it was a perfect world, and it's not, but if it was, in any county, the sheriff is the highest level of public safety, and he's supposed to be a sheriff of the people. Deputies, various kinds of militia that attach themselves to the sheriff of that county, all under his tutorship and direction, should protect the people from criminal activity. That's not what's going on. Our courts are corrupt because they're not courts. They're business enterprises set up by the Bar Association to glean money out of the various coffers known as people's own bonds that they don't even know they have. When you go into a court, you go into a kangaroo court, a star chamber, because that thing that's sitting there in a black robe pretending to be a judge is just that, a fictitious judge. He's not judge. It's not lawful to sit a judge in a court that doesn't exist. Oregon has no circuit court system. It was abolished by the legislature in 1910. Within a year, people of the bar saw a chance to cut a fat cow. They came in and set up a private business enterprise with the name judiciary, but it wasn't anything to do with judiciary. It has a DUNS number, it has a credit rating, it's just a common business. It might well be Burger King or McDonald's. So when you walk into one of those chambers thinking you're in a public court, some kind of public office, you see the sheriff deputies all standing around protecting this phony judge. He's not a judge. And then when you look at the sheriff himself, he's not really a sheriff. And yet the deputies working for the sheriff don't know that. You see, he has to have his oath of office. He has to have a surety bond. There are things required. The United States Congress has it pretty simple and easy to read. In order to be a public official, you have to have these things. But he takes all of his information from the bar, and those people are foreign agents, every one of them. Not only that, they don't know anything about the law. They've never been to law school. You think you're in law school if you go to a university, to the university law school, but what do you study there for credit? British law. There's no credit given for the study of any American law. Read your Constitution, the real one, the de jure and original Constitution. It's very clear. We're under American common law. And that's not French common law, and it's not Italian common law, and it's not English common law. It's American. And you were born on the land and soil as a sovereign here, and they did everything they could to make you think you were something else. So you've got an overlay of criminal activity that runs all the way up to the very top of the Oregon system. The Supreme Court of Oregon is nothing more than Burger King or McDonald's. They're fake. They live in the world of legal fiction. And they want you to be fiction as well so that they can access your personal account, an account that was put into you as an investment at birth that you didn't know about and don't have regular access to. CQV Trust, which was placed on you at birth, is for you personally, just you. It cannot be used to wage war or build bridges or build steamships or arm the military. It's just for you. And when you go through life and you pay into what you think is a social security system, the money you draw when you retire is not your money you paid in. It's taken out of your own personal trust. That trust can grow to an enormous amount of credit. One of our members has found that she's worth $2 billion as soon as she dies. How can that be? Well, you see, they have underwriters guaranteeing their investment in your being here on this planet. And those underwriters will pay off as soon as you die. War is very profitable. It's not about selling arms. It's about killing people. And when you go into court, the first thing they do is assign you a number. So what happens? It's a crooked thing from the beginning because they place 3 bonds against you and you have to redeem the bonds and you don't even know the bonds are there. So you fail to redeem these bonds, bid bond, payment bond, performance bond. You don't know they're there. You think they're in there because you've committed a crime. Well, those charges are laid against you with these bonds. And because you don't know they're there, you don't know enough to redeem them, which is the only way you can get rid of them. And so you go into dishonor. And when you go into dishonor, they go into your trust. If you have a traffic ticket for something rather minor, they make $5 million. It's that crooked, it's that big, and it's that powerful. And then it gets nasty after that. They share the money with the officers of the court. And who are these so-called officers? Well, they're business partners. The guy pretending to be the judge, the prosecutor who's pretending to be the prosecutor, the defense counsel that's pretending to defend against you or protect you, who is also a member of the court, along with the clerk of the court who makes a record of the fact that you were there using your QSIP number and your all caps incorporated name, and your whole case becomes a financial instrument that gives them access to this big credit that's been placed on you as an investment. It's absolutely insane. So if you're going to be a marshal, you're going to be facing the fact that all the sheriffs are corrupt, even though their own deputies may not understand anything about this. But how do you think the sheriff's department is funded? They think they're getting the money from the county and that the county gets its money from taxpayers. No, they're stealing it out of everybody that comes before that court. So you need to know that this is going on, and you need to know that a lot of people in the middle of all this have no clue that they're involved in a criminal RICO operation, but they are. And we've challenged it. We've gone to the district attorney and challenged the district attorney as being fake. And to make sure that they have a copy of the real Oregon Constitution, I put it in her hands. I gave it to her. She gave it back. So, next thing, what do? You go up the ladder. Well, who do they work for? They have the so-called Oregon Supreme Court. And at the time, the gal's name was Flynn. So I sent a bunch of stuff to Flynn, pointing out the fact that the judge, the prosecutor, everybody involved, including the sheriff, because they share the money with him to gather him into the criminal activity so that he can't get out. They entrap the sheriffs. And nothing happened because Flynn is involved as well. She was just another bar attorney, which is a foreign agent working for the British. Her allegiance is to the Crown of England. And she has a labor union-like guild that she belongs to with a temple located in Westminster neighborhood of London, the city, on land that's never been England. It's that crazy. It's Alice in Wonderland. The Bank of England sits on that same land. And the Vatican Bank, the Bank of England, together with the so-called Federal Reserve that we have, comprise the central bank system of the planet. It's that big, it's that strong, and it's that crooked. And we're going to put it right because the founders gave us the silver bullet. They gave us the means to clean the house. They really did. Instead of playing around with all this politics, they severed us completely from it. We don't honor kings, dukes, earls, or anything like that in this country. We declared ourselves independent of it all. And the next thing they did was they let us have a working federal government through a document known as our original Constitution. It sets up the method which we can use to engage the world in trade because the whole damn world is caught up in this thing. They're all incorporated. They're all legal fiction. They're all trading among themselves. It's called commerce. And then they bring this into our courts as commerce. So when you walk into a court, you're walking into a world of legal fiction commerce. And you don't know that you're being sued for an unpaid debt, even though the crime you committed might be murder. But they don't use that word. They give you a couple, 3 bonds, and they let you go into dishonor so that they can get into your trust. Because you have an enormous amount of value there that you can't reach, that they can reach, and they love it. So what we have to do as marshals, we have to confront this. And you have to wear a pair because you're going to be threatened, of course. They're going to ridicule you, of course. But you're going to have a badge with the Oregon seal right in the middle of it. And it's in color, porcelainized, so that they don't have any problem seeing what it is. It's over their own head. It's in the courtroom. It's in the sheriff's department. If you walk in the door, it's right over your head. That's Oregon's seal. That's your seal. You're the real living man or a living woman, and you're badged up to represent the real living people. We're all in the private sector. We're not in their jurisdiction, which they call public sector. No. We are the real deal. And the founders gave us the right to enforce our Constitution ourselves. In other words, we are the government. We are. No one else is. So those guys in DC, no matter who they think they are, wearing the black robes, they're just your employees. They're supposed to provide services, but they don't. They allow an awful lot of criminal activity to take place because it's so lucrative. But you have more power as a living man or a living woman than a Supreme Court judge in DC. You do. And you have a constitution that gives you the authority to speak for the people. And we have these rights. They can't take them away from us. And what their biggest game was, is they get you to incorporate and give you some kind of game plan where you think you're getting ahead, but you're actually we're in the legal fiction. And then they can close the legal fiction. It's called bankruptcy. They can nullify you by closing and destroying your corporation, because every one of you were incorporated soon after you were born. You didn't know it. It's behind your back. Therefore, the contract is null and void because you have to have full disclosure. That's contract law, centuries old. So as a marshal, you have to know these things in your bones. So when you look somebody in the eye that's pretending to be tough and got a gun on his shoulder and a star on his breast, you'll notice the point of the star is always pointing down. That should tell you something, because that's not the way the star is supposed to be. It's supposed to be pointing up. They all point down. Maybe somebody else, some other thing is involved here. So if you want to know more, you have to sit down. We have to have meetings. We have to know what we're talking about. And we have to go in there fully aware that there's nobody going to back you up except the military. And until they show up and get on our doorstep, we're on our own. And I've been challenged a number of times by these guys, mostly sheriffs, sometimes the chief of police, once in a while by a deputy. But usually the deputies are just dumber than rocks. They have no idea what they're involved in. And when I talk to them for about 15 minutes, all of a sudden they have a different look on their face. And then they tell me that they love us guys because they know these courts are crooked. They can see it happening. There isn't anybody in Oregon that's gone to prison that's had a fair trial at all. They've gone through a star chamber court where a judge incarcerated them so that they would sit in a box and pay off their bonds. And they didn't even know the bonds were there. It's that crooked. So I need deputies. I need people that will be a deputy marshal, will learn all the things that the assembly has to offer, and be able to stand in front of these people, look them right in the eye, and say, thou shalt not do this any longer, because we will in fact take you into a court. You will stand before a grand jury and explain your criminal activity. And if you're a bar member, which is a foreign agent, you're in treason. And that's a capital crime. A capital crime has no prison time attached to it. Traditionally, it was a firing squad or the noose, but it is execution. Now, I told a court, the district court for Oregon, and at the time, the attorney that was representing the prosecuting attorney in the district court for Oregon, I told them, because he was in fact a bar member, that he was in treason. He doesn't have to remain that way. And if he wants to be rescued, we can do that. We know how to take him out of that problem. We can rescue him. He doesn't have to be in the crosshairs. He can dodge the bullet, but he's got to make that decision himself. In the case I'm talking about, all he did was blink and look out the window. And I said, I know what the Chris is, and we all do. And he had a shudder run through his body. He didn't know we knew about that. The Chris is where the money moves in the court system outside of your sight, court record investment system. And what they do is they gather the take for the day for everybody that appears that they've successfully prosecuted. It goes on a financial instrument, sent to a clearinghouse, and then to the Federal Reserve of Texas, where it's turned into a bond and sold with a high rate of return to all the governments around the planet. So you going into an Oregon court is helping to feed other countries around the planet. What a deal, huh? We've got to stop this, and we have the ability to do that. We have a good constitution for Oregon. We have a good constitution, de jure and original, that represents our founders. And it was the last time thoroughly reviewed in 1819. At that time, we had the 13th Amendment on there telling everybody about these bar attorneys, that they're not allowed to hold any public office. They're not even allowed to be a citizen. And if they have a farm, they can't buy seed, they can't sell products. They're not supposed to be here. They're foreign agents. So we're appealing to the military the best way we can to make them understand that we're ready. But there's a lot of jobs to fill. We've got to oversee a lot of people that are perhaps dumb as a rock, but maybe their hearts are right. And they got caught up in this without realizing it. They just followed orders. But that's not good enough. Following orders doesn't work. That came out a little bit in Nuremberg, if you'll recall. So people who want to join the organization needs to make contact with us. Let us sit down. Let us find out your level of knowledge so that you'll know what you're talking about. Because when you face somebody and they're armed, you can't be standing there babbling. They got to know that you're serious about this and you're not going to back down for a second, that you actually have more authority than the Supreme Court judge does. You are the people, and this government is you. You are the government. When we assemble, there's nothing that has to be done after that because there's no appeal to us. We're all sovereign on the land and soil, and we have the right to do that. And the founders gave us this authority and this silver bullet with which to clean up the house that they knew was going to happen eventually. It's happened in every country around the planet. So if you will come aboard, welcome aboard. If this is too much, see you down the road. I rest and I yield.
Thank you, Bobby. Anybody here want to make a comment, bring something to the table? I have several things I'd like to bring to the table and get some opinions on. You said one time to me that Marines take orders, and that's what they're designed to do. And I have not been able to figure out a way to give General Eric M. Smith an order. And I'm clerk of our court, Article 3, Amendment 7, Civilian Common Law Court of Record. And I should be able to figure that out. But I have been unable to and haven't found anybody that can give me the silver bullet for that one. Do you have any ideas?
Yes.
Good.
The Constitution clearly says that the military is under the authority of the civilian voice. It's right there in our own Oregon Constitution as well. And all you have to do is word it in a way that's not seen to be rude, because they are kind of, I would say, sensitive to that. I would say that we have this condition, we have in place the remedy, that we need military assistance and we need it now. And if he requires a voice of the civilian population to initiate the order, let him know he now has it, that we are requesting and we are issuing an order to act, if that will satisfy what he needs. And then ask for a response, have him return and see what he thinks. I know he's talking to a bar attorney, and many of these officers are bar attorneys, even though they're in the military. I worked for F. Lee Bailey, and he was pretty notorious at the time he was in the military. He was a Marine, but he went on and got himself disbarred because he wouldn't stop. He was one of those rare people that knew what was going on inside of these courts, and he opened his mouth once too many, so they disbarred him. He passed away not so long ago. But I think I would use that approach in a personal letter with maybe our letterhead.
Do you think a letter is the proper way?
I would start that way. Then I would make it into a more formal document. And I could probably find out the wording for the document from Rick down there in California, because he seems to know a lot about it. He's from Oregon. And
would you ask him?
I will.
Yes.
I'll be talking to him tomorrow.
Because we already have a demand in place for a petition of redress of grievance. We have that already in place.
That's a good one.
And I was wondering if this could be the petition that we have to present to them and they have to receive.
I would use the terminology lawful order because all Marines in boot camp, right from the very beginning, are instructed that they are not to obey an unlawful order. And yet, of course, they're terrified not to obey anything. And they don't know an unlawful from a lawful order. But Eric Smith would know. And you could put that little verbiage in there that this is a lawful order of request. That would satisfy any maybe questions in his mind, you know. I'll do it that way.
Brandon had a question. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I just wanted to add some input here and say that I think it would be a good idea to also cite, you know, where it states that we do have the rights to activate them, the law, citing it. So they themselves can go and see that. You know, I think that'd be very important. I yield.
Well, yeah, it's right in our Oregon Constitution, if nothing else. You know, it says right there. The national Constitution does too.
Right, but I mean highlight it for him.
Yeah. How about we give him a copy of the Oregon Constitution just for fun?
Cut and paste.
I've got one. It's a little long to cut and paste, but I'll ship it to him by snail mail or federal, whatever kind of mail we can do. I can put a package together.
All right. He's in Pendleton. We can find out his mailing address there.
I have
Here's-
an input into this, or just a question, because it just kind of hit me a while ago. So when we send this information back to Camp Pendleton and all these places, I feel like we should let our Congress know at the same time.
Not the Congress.
Which Congress?
You want maybe Donald Trump,
No,
maybe
well,
Berger and Trump.
maybe, but
Congress is corrupt.
I understand. I totally understand that.
Well, I don't know of any Congress that you can send anything to. The one in DC is definitely not Congress.
No.
Okay,
And
Oregon, the representatives and the senators. It's
okay,
about our state first.
all right.
I'm just asking.
There's nobody there to ask.
No, I don't want to ask them. I just want to send it to them.
How-
Via their emails. Because they actually did get our stuff. It was when they were actually brought up on charges, they did get it. They just didn't get it before we actually held the trial, but it did ultimately get to them. I'm aware of that. Just because I've had someone tell me that's part of the Congress that they did, the Senate. But they didn't get it in a timely fashion because they're not the ones that opens their own mail and they're not the ones that does anything. But I think that we should send it at least to the Secretary of State and the governor when we mail this stuff off to let them know that we're coming after them.
Well, we send it to Cheryl Myers, who's the Deputy Secretary of State. So we do that, but
They are made aware. That's all.
oh yeah, they're aware. Yeah.
Comment.
Good.
I like
Good.
the idea of sending a copy of our Constitution, our Oregon Constitution, but I don't want to send it separate of the letter. It has to go with the letter so that they have the reference for it and see it. I don't see the benefit of sending it separate. I yield.
That's probably a good idea, Laura. Yeah, I wouldn't make any moves until the boss gets back. She handles all of the, I want to say docket, but she calls it cause. She handles the cause numbers. So until we have a lawful document, we shouldn't probably do much, but she'll be back soon.
Yeah, and you could work on your letter.
Yeah. Maybe I'll let somebody else work on that letter. One of the things that I think we need to look at is what is the market, a cross section of the market that would look like a deputy marshal for Oregon. What does that guy look like?
Yeah. It's kind of like a one-on-one because I never know till I actually sit with them, and I can't really tell through text or email. I gotta actually sit with them and get a feel for who they are.
Like me, just a little taller and a little buffer.
He could
Do you
be
think-
somebody that's retiring from sheriff, even sheriff, deputy sheriffs leaving.
That's a pretty good idea.
I mean, you guys have a list of deputy sheriffs that I put together. That would it be fun to call and say, "Could you be interested?"
A recruit. I used to be a recruiter years ago in Portland. Recruited for engineering and construction. Yes. Okay. I'll take that one. I'll start making some calls.
Yeah, and if you need the list again, I'll send it to you. But yeah, you could work off the counties that are closest to you and Bobby. You know,
I'd like to do Washington County. If you've got anybody there that's willing to talk, I'll talk to them. I see Michelle's on, and I wondered if Michelle had anything to share with us. We had people at the Oregon Archives today.
before Michelle talks, I'd like to thank Bobby for what you said. It's always fascinating to listen to you and the history that you present. And I wanted to thank you for that. I yield.
You're
Here,
welcome.
here.
I just I babble a lot, but I'll tell you something that happened over at Pacific City that was interesting. Since we had a couple of hours by ourselves out there outside of the meeting in the front lobby, a candidate for our legislature was standing there. He's from Seaside. And he was right on with everything we said and everything we talked about. He actually kind of knew about it. And we interacted for about an hour and a half steady there. And I thought to myself at the time, I wonder if it's possible to interest a guy as a deputy who may win a position in our legislative assembly in Salem. We got JT there, but we could have maybe somebody in the assembly itself, and then maybe he could find other senators or representatives that would like to, and be kind of fun to undermine the criminals with people sitting right next to them.
Infiltrate the.
Well, yeah, that's their game plan. Let's use it back.
They're just one proper oath away. I'm sorry. Go, Laura.
The guy you spoke with from Seaside. Do you remember his name?
I don't just right now, but Michelle will.
Okay.
We talked with him for maybe an hour and a half.
Thank you, Bobby, Laura, and Ron. I wanted to piggyback on our visit to Pacific City yesterday, and this Glenn Gaithy is his name. Let me just confirm that. Glenn, I had him up here. Hang on. Anyway, I think it's Glenn Gaithy. Gaithey. I don't have him up on my computer anymore. And yes, he was, he used to work in law enforcement for 20 years or 10 or 20 years. He at the correctional, whatever, institute. And he had pancreatic cancer. I think he had a really come to Jesus phase of his life recently, because he was very open, like Bobby said, and receptive. And what he told us, I don't know if you remember, Bobby, he shared that he has joined forces with Dennis, what's his name? Dennis Linthicum. And I can't remember if it was Ron Wyden but he named off 3 or 4 people.
Hope not.
So, pardon?
I hope it's not Wyden.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I can't recall. Yeah, I can't. I don't think it was Wyden. He named off a few people. Dennis Linthicum, hit a chord because I know him and he's a good guy. So that was very productive. He did talk with us for a long time, and I don't know if he'll get selected, but he is definitely in our train of thought. And I see your hand, Cynthia. I was going to talk about the archives today with Laura Walker, if I may, before Cynthia.
Please.
Thank you. So Laura and her friend Julie accomplished quite a bit. The head scratcher is that the guy, whoever it is that was there, that let them in and was not helpful in the least. But there is no record of the 26-year-long judicial committee, which is called the, it's not in front of me, the Traffic Rules Committee. 26 years, and they have no records on it. So that's a big red flag, obviously. I mean, what a joke, right? But
yeah.
But there are records that it's like connect the dots. This David Mumau, who was the director and his attorney that wrote, I believe it was Senate Bill 124. It speaks of this committee, yet they don't, quote unquote, they don't have any records. So it was pretty eventful. A lot was done. I wasn't able to go because my car's on the fritz, but Laura did give me a play-by-play throughout the day, and I think it's going to prove to be wonderful evidence for the right to travel cases. I yield.
Thank you, Michelle. Cynthia's left us. Unless somebody else has something to say, I think we've got a pretty good recruiting message out for deputy marshals on Oregon. You got any more to say, Bobby?
Nope, I'm done.
Okay, me too.
They do not want to let go of this. They do not intend on losing here. And we do not intend giving it back to them.
And then the bullets started flying, and then he jumps out of the car, and he's got both his hands up.
And he got out of the car, and he had his hands in the air. He's like, "Just shoot me then. This is what you want, to shoot me." And they did. They shot him dead with his hands in the air, and I saw it. I swear to God. He was just walking with his hands in the air, and they shot him. And they shot him dead, and then after he was down on the ground, shot him 3 more times.